Hi there, everybody. It's great to have you along with our Dealing with Disruption webinar. We're just going to give a few moments for everybody to join in, get yourself settled and seated, and looking forward to having this webinar with you. My name is Graeme Codrington, and we're going to be about 45 minutes or so today. I'm going to go for about 35 minutes in terms of presentation, and then we're going to have an opportunity for Q&A, at least for those of you who are joining us live. Just while we wait for everybody to join us, I'll give a minute or two for everybody to get into the room. You might want to just make sure you can see the screen. I've got some slides that I'll be showing you, and I thought I'd just start off with this little poem. I don't have the greatest poet's voice, so I'm not going to read it. I'll put it up on the screen. You can read it, and we'll get going in just a moment. What if 2020 is a year that could be a gift for us, a year that could be an opportunity to learn how to deal with disruption? And so that's my topic, to learn how to deal with disruption. You know, moments mark our lives. Some of the moments that mark our lives are regular. The hours tick by, the days, the weeks, the months, the years. We mark some of them with celebrations. I recently had a birthday. It was a 50th birthday, as it happened. So it was one of those decade moments that you mark life with. And yeah, it was a weird feeling to be 50. I don't know what 50 is supposed to feel like, but I certainly don't feel 50. It sounds old, but I certainly don't feel old. But we mark our lives with a variety of different moments. Some of those moments are deeply disruptive, and our lives are forever changed, and we forever remember life before and after that moment. That could be traumatic and horrible events, tragedies, where life is never the same, and it can be in an instant, some of these accidents and tragedies that cause things to change. They can also be celebrations, weddings, births of children, all sorts of things that are also deeply disruptive. Disruption isn't actually a negative concept. It's a neutral concept, can be positive or negative. But there are those moments when a disruption comes and life is never the same again. There's the before that moment and after that moment. Either way, they change our lives. COVID's done that to us in 2020, hasn't it? COVID has been one of those before and after moments. And sadly, COVID is not the only thing that's going to disrupt our lives, right? We are going to experience serious disruption for a long, long time. This is what I do for a living, right? So I am a futurist and a scenario planner, and for the last 20 years, I have been helping clients to prepare for, to anticipate disruptions in the future. And helping them then to, having anticipated a disruption that might be coming, to plan for it and do something about it today. Our company is called Tomorrow Today, and we have a sort of 50-50 emphasis. 50% is about imagining and thinking what might happen and what might change significantly in the future, and 50% is what do we do about it today. And we are going to be dealing with all sorts of disruptors over the next decade. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, data analytics, predictive analytics, cloud, mobility. The list goes on and on if we think about technologies and fourth industrial revolution disruptions. Then you can think of geopolitics, We've got Brexit that's still in the process of going through. We've got China and America in a trade war. I don't know if it's freaking you out as much as I am. India and China having little scuffles on their borders. The world of politics and geopolitics is very in flux at the moment. Then you add climate change and environmental issues. The list goes on and on with disruptions. And we need to prepare for disruptive change. Not just know how to get through the COVID disruption that we're in at the moment, but deal with every disruption that might be coming our way. This happened to me this year. At the beginning of 2020, I was so excited it was 2020 after all. As scenario planners and futurists, our team had often been riffing on that whole 2020 vision, and we were all excited about this new decade and what the future could bring us, and came into this year with lots of plans and goals, and actually quite a full diary. I travel all around the world and speak on disruption and change with my clients. And as March hit us and it became clear that COVID was not just going to be contained in China, but was moving all around the world, as we saw things unravel in Spain and Italy, I actually traveled through Europe, flew through Europe in mid-February, and decided to wear a mask through the airport, which felt very weird and strange. Not a lot of people were doing it, but just I was nervous of what would happen. And then in March, here in South Africa, where I'm based, as in many places around the world, we went into full lockdown and banned travel and all sorts. And just there was 1 week where just suddenly I was getting phone calls from every client saying our events being cancelled, our events being postponed, our events being shifted, we're changing our plans. And by the end of March, my diary was clear, not in a good way, in a bad way. All of the work that I'd planned to do in 2020 had been disrupted. Wonder what plans you had for 2020, and whether you were disrupted in ways that, like I was. I know some friends who plan to get married this year, and they've decided to hold off. They want to do those ceremonies with family and friends, and they can't do it. I then know of somebody who's a wedding photographer, right? And hasn't been able to do any work this year. It's been crazy. I think we've all been disrupted. That's probably why you're here for the webinar. But I had a secret weapon. This is what I do for a living, and I've been helping clients to think about and engage with disruption for the last 20 years. It was interesting now that I had to take my own medicine, if you like, that I had to go back and listen to myself, replay myself in my head. Luckily, I had all the replays available. And I've spent quite a bit of lockdown actually learning real time, learning in my own environment and with our team, how to apply some of what we've just been consulting to other clients. It's a beautiful thing to be a consultant, isn't it? Because you can come in, you can be a bit of a hero if you know what you're talking about and doing and giving good advice to clients, which we have been doing. Otherwise, we obviously wouldn't have had repeat clients for 20 years. But it's a whole other thing to be the person who has to change the plans, who has to respond in this way. One of the things that our team has been able to do is actually put together an entire video course during lockdown. And I'm tremendously proud of the course itself, but also that we've been able to do it during lockdown. And what we've tried to do with this video course is to go step by step through the processes that we've helped our clients do for the last 20 years, to take what we've typically been doing with senior leadership teams in some of the world's most recognizable brands and putting it into a course that's accessible for individuals. Because if you're anything like me, you've been disrupted. Even if you didn't lose your job, even if you've still got your job, your industry's been disrupted, right? The office has been disrupted. Most of you have probably had to work from home for most of 2020, and that's disrupted. Your kids have had their education disrupted. So even if some aspects of your life weren't disrupted, a lot of them were. So what are some of the keys? We talk about 7 keys in this course. And that's what I want to share with you in this webinar. And we will have an opportunity for questions in about 20 minutes or so. So if you do have any questions, you can keep them till then, but maybe just go into the chat box right now and pop in any questions that you might have. And I will be able to pick them up, and Jude and who's running the chat box for me in the background will highlight them for me when the time comes. But let me dive in with now some practical. What do you do if you're in the same situation that I'm in and will have been, and what do we need to do? Well, the number one thing that we need to do is we need to learn adaptability. In fact, I do want you to engage with me now. Won't you go over to the chat box? I want a quick little competition here. There's going to be a fastest fingers first into the chat box. This is Charles Darwin, right? I'm sure you recognized him. And Charles Darwin is famous, probably most famous, for a particular saying. I want you to complete the saying. Charles Darwin said, "It is survival of the..." And go to the chat box, fastest fingers first here. Let's see what we've got. I can't even get to the... Okay. Lynn, I think you got in slightly ahead of my question, because you're correct. He's most famous for the theory of evolution. Exactly right. So Silk, whoever that is, got in there, and everybody else is getting it faster. The survival of the fittest, the fittest, the fittest. Everybody's saying it, fittest, fittest, fittest. That's exactly what your science teacher taught you at school, and it's wrong. Sorry to tell you, it's not what Charles Darwin said. In fact, he actually technically said exactly the opposite, because this is the actual quote from his book, The Origin of Species. It's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent. And then later on in the book, he adds things like, the fittest, the sexiest, the biggest, and so on. When the environment changes, when the situation around an organism shifts and adapts, the organism that is most likely to survive is the one that is most responsive to change. Now, that doesn't flow off the tongue, the survival of the most responsive to change. But it is technically what Charles Darwin said, and it is the heart of the theory of evolution. Your science teacher would probably argue and say, yeah, but the fittest organism is most likely to be responsive to change. I don't know. Maybe you should phone your school up and see if you can get a little bit of a refund, because we were all taught badly. Francois, you came in with most adaptable. Well done. I'm just seeing in the chat there. So Francois, you can send a little thank you note to your school for getting that one right. This is the point. That being adaptable, being responsive to change, is probably the most important skill set that you can develop. Now, I saw somebody asking, is adaptability the same as flexibility, the same as resilience, the same? There's a lot of other words that you can use, and in a sense, these words are similar. So I don't want to argue about words and so on. If you prefer the word flexibility, go for it. I think adaptability is more powerful. Flexibility has the picture of something that can bend, but when you let it go, what happens? It goes back to its original shape. It snaps back. So it's flexible, but it's wanting to go back to its original shape. And that's why I don't like flexibility as much as I like adaptability, because adaptability is about change, is about becoming something that you weren't. But if you prefer flexibility, if you prefer, some people prefer agility, which adds the element of speed and the element of responding with speed, that's fine. For me, anyway, adaptability, adaptive works. Probably the most important thing that I'm going to say to you today is this issue. If we look at adaptive leadership, here I need to give a reference to Professor Ron Heifetz from Harvard, who has written a number of books on this topic and kind of coined the phrase adaptive leadership. And I like that phrase of becoming an adaptive leader, or developing your adaptive intelligence, or adaptability intelligence, if you prefer. Now I'm just playing with words. But Ron Heifetz identified this as the key. We have to look at what's going on in the world around us, look at what is disrupting our world, what is a challenge, what are we struggling with, and to say, is this challenge a technical challenge or an adaptive challenge? What I mean by this is, a technical challenge is a challenge that you can deal with using existing knowledge, existing expertise. It's maybe something you've dealt with before, and it is easy is the wrong word. You are able to clearly identify the challenge. And when you deal with a challenge that is a technical challenge, you can get a group of people together, even you can argue about the definition of the problem, but you will all eventually agree with what the problem is. And then there is a recommended best solution. And again, the person in the room that has the most experience, that has the deepest expertise, is probably the person you want to look for to say, what would you do? And then that's the answer to the question. A lot of challenges that we face in life are technical challenges. But the problem with disruption is that disruption comes and hits across our normal. It hits across where we were planning to go and comes straight through us and changes the rules of the game. And adaptive challenges are challenges where we've never experienced something like this before, where the previous rules for success and failure no longer work, and where we're going to have new learning, new expertise, and probably most importantly, where the people who have the experience are possibly the worst people or even the most dangerous people to comment on the problem, because they keep saying, well, when I was young, or I've seen this before and this is how we did it in the past. And you keep thinking, but this is unlike anything we've ever seen before. Don't keep telling me how you used to handle it and what you used to do. The key to developing adaptability is to recognize and acknowledge when you have an adaptive challenge. Because what that does immediately for you is it frees you up from saying, I should know what's going on here. I should know how to deal with this. And if I just apply my mind a little bit more, we should come up with an easy and obvious answer. Let me help you understand this maybe with a practical example. Have you ever had the experience of speaking to somebody or engaging with somebody where you think, and you might even say it out loud to that person, haven't we talked about this before? Didn't we deal with this last week? I'm sure we had a conversation last week and we all discussed this and we agreed on it. Haven't we dealt with this before? So why are we here again? Why are we here where I am frustrated again with the fact that you are doing something we've agreed you shouldn't do, or you are asking me a question I'm sure I've answered, but now you're asking it again. Have you ever had that experience where you think something's been resolved and then it hasn't? That's a huge indicator of an adaptive challenge, where what we thought was resolved is not resolved, where it keeps coming back around again. There's something blocking the system somewhere, that we just can't seem to get over this hurdle. It might be a hurdle in a relationship. It might be an issue at work. It might be something you're trying to get your kids to do. I remember an example. This is from way back when in my past, where I was very involved in youth groups and youth work. And there was we had a weekly program with a whole group of young people that we had in a hall. It wasn't our hall. And so we had to arrive early on a Friday afternoon for the evening session. And we had to set the hall up. And then we wanted to set chairs up so that at least when the young people arrived, there would be a place to sit and we could chat to them and talk to them and kind of talk about what would happen during the youth group activity that evening. And there's a lot of work to set up a room and a hall and all the activities for, close on 100 young people every Friday night. And so we had a group of volunteers that would help me. I was running the group. And every week I would arrive on the Friday afternoon, and the volunteers were supposed to have been there and setting up the hall. And they just weren't there. They were just completely unreliable. And every week I would chat to them and say, hey, guys, why didn't you get here on time? Why didn't you set the hall out? And they would have, oh, sorry, Graeme. And we'd have this excuse and that excuse. And then they'd say, right, we'll be here next week. We really believe this. But here's the thing, that they were supposed to arrive by 6 o'clock, to have it set up and ready by 6 o'clock. I would always arrive early because I was sure that they wouldn't be there, and I just needed to make sure that everything was set up. And I would set out the chairs. And they would then arrive at 6:30 and mosey in. We were due to start at 7. And they would say, oh, sorry, Graeme. But the point is, the chairs were set up because I had done the work. So one day, a good friend of mine helped me, and he said, well, what you're doing is you're not helping them to feel the problem. You, Graeme, have just got to not set out the chairs. And so I just decided, well, but that's going to be a mess, right? Then everybody's going to arrive and they're just going to see a mess. But I decided I can't keep doing what I was doing. So that I arrived, they weren't there, the chairs weren't set up, and I decided not to set it up. I just went off and had a drink. They arrived at 6:30 and the hall was not set up at all. And they said, oh, Graeme, why haven't you set up the hall? I said, no, it's not my job, it's your job. And they said, oh, sorry. And they rushed, but they didn't quite get it done. The following week, the same thing happened. But the following week, a very interesting thing happened. A whole lot of young people were arriving and saying, Graeme, the last week or two, why has there been such a mess when we've arrived? Why hasn't everything been set up? And I explained when I said, well, we've got a group of volunteers, but they're not very reliable. And a whole lot of new young people said, well, we'd love to help. We'd love to volunteer. We'd happy to get you. 5:30, if you want us to, we'll set it up. And I suddenly got a new set of volunteers in the room. I had been approaching the problem with a technical mindset. I need the whole set up. And if the people who are supposed to set it up don't set it up, I'll just set it up and we'll solve the problem. But it was actually an adaptive challenge. It wasn't a technical problem. It was an adaptive problem. I had the wrong people doing the wrong job. I had the wrong volunteers. And I just needed to swap out the volunteers. Those other people who weren't able to get there early, they were very good at doing other stuff. So we just shifted them to do other stuff. They were very happy to be involved. And suddenly, things were ticking along nicely. Why? Because I suddenly shifted away from approaching a technical issue, well, what I thought was a technical problem, with a kind of, giving people more of a checklist, making sure that they go on a time management course, shouting at them more. I don't know, what have you tried to do to solve frustrating ongoing problems? We try and fix an adaptive problem with technical solutions. That will never work. Technical challenges can be solved with technical solutions, but adaptive challenges need adaptive solutions. And the moment you are able to agree with yourself and agree with your team that we are not dealing with a technical challenge that can be solved using approaches and methods and skill sets and systems that we've used in the past, once we've agreed with our team that we're not facing a technical challenge that requires just more application of the same approach, once we've agreed with ourselves and our team that we are in fact not facing a technical challenge, but an adaptive challenge, we can then free ourselves up to become more adaptable. And we do that, we identify adaptive challenges and we respond to adaptive challenges by doing a whole lot of other things that I've put into that course for you. And so that's the heart of this dealing with disruption course, is to say you've got to start by getting a balcony perspective. So you've got to step away from the issue, the disruption that you're facing at the moment, and see a bigger systems issue, and we need to learn how to do that. Then we've got to be able to identify which aspects of this disruption are technical, which need just a bit of expertise. They need somebody else to come in and fix it for us, somebody who knows what they're talking about, somebody with some expertise. Bring them in, sort it out. Simple example, if your house is burning down, right? You don't want a fireman to arrive and say, wow, I've never seen a fire like this before. Shoo, this is unbelievable. I mean, you'd freak out at that point, right? What you want is a fireman to arrive who says, I've seen 1,000 fires. In fact, I've just come from another fire. I know exactly what's going on here. Step away, please. I'm going to sort this out for you. Same thing as if you've got a brain tumor or something wrong with your body. You want a surgeon who says, I've seen this before. I know what needs to be done. Stand back. I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to solve the problem. That's fine if your problem is a technical problem. But if you've got an adaptive challenge, if you are dealing with disruption in the sense that the normal has been disrupted, then you've got to identify what the nature of that disruption is and what new learning, what new skills, what new insights are needed. The next thing you're going to have to deal with is who's got the authority in the system. Because if we're changing our way of looking at the world, it might be that the old authorities, the people who didn't know what was going on and therefore had the power, no longer know what's going on and shouldn't have the power. And we've got to shift how we think about authority and responsibility. And a lot of that comes from experimentation. And we've got to build the culture of experimentation into our teams, our organizations, and our own DNA, our own psyche. We've got to get better at trying things, giving it a go. And on the course, I talk about reducing the experimental risk. We don't want to do massive experiments that cost us money, that will burn stuff down if it doesn't work. But I show you how to do experiments that reduce the risk, that we can learn from, and that we can grow from. Now, all of this, I'm sure you understand, requires quite a lot of emotional intelligence. Knowing yourself, knowing what triggers you, knowing what gets on your nerves, knowing what makes you stressed and what doesn't, and understanding your personality and your personality profile in response to disruptive change. Every personality type is capable of dealing with change. We all just deal with it in different ways. Some personality types work well when they are panicking. And the last thing you want to say to that person is stop panicking, because it's actually the panic that drives them to all the good behaviors. For some people, panic is a problem, and we've got to help them to stop panicking. Do you know who you are? Are you somebody who works well when you're right up against a hard deadline? Or are you somebody who likes a long lead time and you don't get yourself into trouble? Knowing yourself and knowing others is absolutely essential to dealing with disruption. And then finally on the course, I talk about some of the leadership. A lot of this course, most of this course is for you as an individual. And a lot of these things here are for you as individuals. But of course, we do need to think about if you have to influence and engage and lead and manage other people in the system. So obviously, in a short little webinar like this week, we can't go into all the detail of each of these other areas. But basically, from point 2 to point 6 is the process, the step-by-step methods of becoming adaptable. The key, the most important key to dealing with disruption is to develop your ability to become more adaptable. And there's a skill set, there's a mindset, and there's an attitude to that. If you are here and looking at this webinar because COVID is your disruptor, and you're thinking, good grief, 2020's just done me in, right? And I'm realizing, I think as most of us are realizing, that 2021 is not going to be too much different. The only difference with 2021 is we're not going to be surprised, but COVID is still going to be in the system. Then let me be even more direct and focused in providing you with some takeaways here. Because if your focus is, in fact, before I talk about this, if your focus is on COVID, then let's take the concept of developing adaptive intelligence that I've put into this course and apply it a little bit in the COVID environment. And here a really cool application is to think about the head, the heart, and the hands. So what do you have to change in your thinking? What do you have to change in your feelings, your emotions, your attitudes? And what do you have to change in what you do? And so an application, if we step back, get that systems perspective, if we look at COVID as an adaptive challenge, then the first thing we need in our heads is a reminder that COVID isn't going away. That by all accounts, COVID might get worse. Even a second wave, a third wave is very likely. Don't listen to the politicians. Don't listen to your Auntie Ivy who's watched some YouTube video, some pandemic video somewhere, and now knows everything that there is to know about this global pandemic. Listen to the experts. And the experts, the medical experts, the economists, the business experts, who don't have anything to gain by telling us this stuff. They're just doing their job. They're all telling us that we're not even halfway through COVID yet. This isn't the motivational part of the of the webinar, but the point is that this is part of becoming adaptable, is getting a realistic insight of where you actually are. So if that's the case, then the hard part of this is look after yourself. Find your COVID pace, right? Too many of us have been working hard in 2020, desperately doing the job we've given to do, or hustling to try and find a job. If we've lost a job, we're stressed, we're not sleeping well. And you can't just grit your teeth and keep going like that, because you can't keep that up for 2 years. You could keep it up till the end of this year, but if the whole of next year's got disruption in it as well, then part of dealing with disruption is to look after yourself and find your COVID pace. And then with your hands, just some practical things that you can do is that you can develop the skills you're going to need to be professional and to deliver in a technology-driven environment. Like I've done, for example, built a little studio. I say built a studio, right? This is not a studio. Let me show you. I've got a green screen on my wall, but here's my green screen. I went to a linen shop and I bought a king-sized green sheet. Who the hell sleeps on a sheet this color, by the way? I just want to know how on earth they had this color in stock. I don't know. But you want to get a vivid green sheet and literally masking taped to a wall. And then I got one or two of those lights. I'm sure you've all seen them. I mean, these just cost a couple of bucks. It's cheap plastic, but it does the job. It lights me up nicely from the sides, lights up the sheet at the back, and that then allows me to use software which is free to get on your computer to put my slides behind me. Pretty cool, right? Some of you are saying, yeah, but my boss won't pay for that. My company won't pay for that. Well, did your company pay for your clothes? Did your company pay for your shoes? Do you need new shoes this year? I don't. Look at what I'm wearing today. Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to show you the rest of me. I'm pretty cool upstairs, but I don't need new shoes this year. And the cost of my lights and my sheet was less than a pair of new shoes. So you can invest in yourself. You can build something where you look smart. So when everybody in your team comes to a COVID meeting on Zoom or Teams or wherever you come to meetings, you're looking the smartest. You're ahead of the game. When you have a job interview and it's got to be done virtually, you're ahead of the game. Get your head in the game, get your attitude and your heart right, and do stuff. That's a simple application of everything that you would get access to on this Dealing with Disruption course. So I hope that that's given you some insight, some practical takeaway value that you can use just from this webinar. But I also hope that it's given you some an idea of what you could do on a course. Now, that's what we would charge a corporate client, a few $1,000s to do courses like this with our corporate clients. But we want to make this accessible to everybody in our network. We want everybody, people just like you, to be able to learn how to deal with disruption. And so we've put a really special price on this. I had to fight my team to do this because we normally work only with corporates. We don't normally do public events. But we've done so much learning. We've developed so much during this lockdown, and this course distills all of our learning around being adaptable and dealing with disruption, that I'm really thrilled that we're able to give you guys a really great offer of just $75 or whatever that is in your local currency. And if you go to this website here, exactly as you see it, no www. In fact, Jude, would you just drop this into the chat box for us now as well, so that people can just look in the chat and click on the link and go directly to there. You can just sign up right now. If you sign up for this course in the next 48 hours. So we've started the clock now during this webinar. And if you sign up in the next 48 hours, I really want to just make sure that you get the most value possible. So in addition to getting the course, we're also going to give you a copy of the book that my colleague and I, Keith Coates, and I wrote. With COVID now, we can't send a hard copy through the post, so we're going to send you a digital copy of the book, Leading in a Changing World. We wrote that a year and a half ago, and we looked at it a while ago, and we thought, this book doesn't need to be changed. It's all about leading in a changing world, and I suppose the only thing I'd probably do is change the title to Leading in a Changed World. Other than that, I think it's a brilliant read, and especially if you're in leadership and managing a team. The other thing we're going to do for you if you sign up in the next 48 hours is that we are going to give you access to our Future of Work Academy. You can have a look at thefutureofworkacademy.com. Something that our team at Tomorrow Today has put together. There's a whole lot of courses that teach you future skills. There's a book club. There's an online community. And normally there's a monthly charge for this. And we're going to give you 3 months of free access to the Future of Work Academy. It's a brilliant companion to the Dealing with Disruption course because it gives you short little videos. Our concept is micro-learning so that you can spend just a few minutes every day developing your future skills. And you get the whole of the Future of Work Academy completely free for 3 months when you sign up for this Dealing with Disruption course. Just by the way, some of the courses that are included with the Future of Work Academy, which are all completely free for you, include a course like Working from Home, how to set up your home office, exactly what I talked about there, how to set up your home office from home. It's all included, and you get online 24/7 support from our team. And just in case you're still a little bit nervous about signing up for this, here's a promise to you. If you sign up and it's not what you're looking for, if you sign up and you start to go through the course and you think this isn't going to work for me, just tell us. No questions asked. You don't have to give any explanations. We'll give you your money back. I'm not trying to fleece anything from anybody. I am trying to take what we have learned and put it in a way that is accessible for as many people as possible. You see, here's what I truly believe. We are going through a massive crisis at the moment. And yes, of course, your first task is to survive the crisis. I hope you're doing that, personally and professionally. But the second task, which is way more important than the first, is to use this crisis, this COVID manic crazy world we're in, to use it as an opportunity. We are being forced into disruption, forced to work from home, forced into tough spots in our relationships, forced to change our lives and our world, forced to change careers, look for new jobs, forced into tough times. But we can become more conscious and active in recognizing what we are learning through that and being more deliberate about learning. So not just surviving, but learning through the crisis so that we can take the opportunity the crisis gives us to develop our ability to deal with any disruptions, with all the disruptions that are coming our way in the next little while. So please sign up. Please take advantage of this special offer that we've given to you. And if you do, I want to add just one extra thing. I don't normally do this, but anybody who signs up in the next 48 hours, I'm going to do a live in-person session in a month's time. The Dealing with Disruption course is 40 short videos. Short, I mean 4 or 5 minutes each, and there's a workbook that goes along with it that helps you to unpack the lessons and gives you some exercises to do. It's a beautifully paced program. And in about a month's time, you should be about halfway through the program. You could do it the whole course in the next day. It'll only take you a few hours if you just go video and you just watch it. But that's not the best way to do the course. You got to develop these skills. It's not a quick fix for anything. It develops a whole new skill set that will be there for the rest of your life. And so in a month's time, anybody who signs up in the next 2 days, I'm going to host an interactive session where we can unpack, answer questions directly, engage together. So there's the link again. Please go and sign up for the Dealing with Disruption webinar. Okay, I've done 2 things. I've hopefully inspired you to sign up for that course. But I also hope that I've given you some practical ideas and some inspiration to deal with disruption and to be able to step away from a crisis mindset into a more proactive and healthy and hopeful mindset as well. Right. I am going to go into the chat box now and see if there are any questions. And I am also going to take any new questions that come in. If you don't have any questions and don't want to watch me answering anybody else's questions, then I thank you very much for your time, and I hope that this was useful. Otherwise, I'm now going to dive in and have a look at some of the questions. We have from Kim, we have, if experimentation implies room to make mistakes, what happens when your authorities or clients have no tolerance? And that's a great question. And I suppose there are two ways to answer this question, Kim, and that is the first is what we need to try and do. If you live in an environment, if you work in an environment where there's not a lot of tolerance for mistakes, and let me just put this up to use this visually to what I mean, then what you've got to do is you've got to reduce the experimental risk. You've got to choose your experiments wisely. You don't want to burn the place down and you don't want to wreck any relationships. So what you've got to do is you've got to say, I want to try something, but is there a way of trying it that if it doesn't work, right? So if the thing I'm trying doesn't work, can I undo it? Can I undo it without doing too much damage? So for an example, Kim, if you've got something you want to try with your clients, you want to try a new way of communicating with your clients, instead of just trying that on all of your clients, what you do is you take 3 or 4 of your clients, preferably clients you know well, who you can kind of do no wrong with. Hopefully we all have a few of those clients. You might even want to reduce the risk even further by actually speaking to them and saying, hey guys, I'm actually wanting to experiment with communicating. Would you mind if for the next week or two, I communicate with you in a slightly different way, and then you give me some feedback? And so you literally, you reduce the scope, you reduce the number of people involved, and you even be more open so that people realize you are actively experimenting. If one of your clients says, no, please don't, I'm not interested, well, okay, then step away. You've reduced risk by asking them. I can't imagine that if you frame it in that way, though, that people are all going to say, no, we refuse. A lot of them say, okay, let's see what happens. And so if you reduce the experimental risk, that's one way of going about it. The other way is a little bit more cheeky, and it suits my personality a little bit more, and it's why I don't have a job. It's why I'm unemployable. It's because you can always ask for forgiveness rather than permission. Yeah, okay. So that's maybe not the best advice for everybody, but sometimes if you're really confident that something is going to work, sometimes it's worth just doing it. And then if it does work, it pays off and you get value. If it doesn't work well, then you didn't get that advice from me. So it depends on your risk appetite, Kim, I think. But certainly the concept of reducing your experimental risk, and I talk quite a lot about that on the course, that's the key there. Lynn, you're asking a completely different question, unrelated to the content, but you're asking, so what's the actual software? What's my setup here? And by the way, we talk about this in that Future of Work Academy course on setting up your home office. So a few things. I spoke to you about my green screen behind me, which basically you just need a flat surface with a solid color, and preferably a color you don't wear. Let me show you why this could happen. Oh, in fact, here's a good example here. In fact, I probably shouldn't show you that. That's a couple of messages from people. Here's my phone, right? And my phone has a South African flag as the background. But you can't see the green because the green of the South African flag is pretty much the same green as the background. So that's what a green screen does. I could have a red background and then the red bit wouldn't show. And we typically just use green because green's the color we don't have. We have reds and blues and things in our faces and our features. We don't typically have that. If you've got eyes that color, you can't use a green screen. That would be pretty weird. Then I've got lighting. As I said to you, you've got to have 2 lights. They're about that distance. I'm pretty much touching them now. They shine onto the screen behind me so that there are no shadows Just let me show you that. So there are no shadows here. It's only when I get quite close to the green screen that there's a shadow. And then I've got another light in front of me over here and another one to the side there. That's the one I pulled in earlier, that just shine on my face so that I'm nicely lit. I've then got a desk. I'm standing, I'm sure you can see. I've then got a desk that's high enough for my camera, my computer to be at my eye height. And then I've got a microphone. You might have heard a little bit of noise in the background. My neighbor is building a studio. Same as what I did earlier in lockdown. I think we're all going to be adjusting our houses, right? Adaptability, adjusting the places we stay. And I asked them to keep it quiet until the top of the hour, but they angle grinding. Hopefully, my very good Rode Podcaster microphone has damped that sound a little bit, and that you didn't hear that. I just ignored it for my purposes. And then the actual software that I'm using to get the slides behind me. If you've got a Windows device, use OBS. And that has the grand advantage of being free. I'm a Mac person, so on an Apple Mac, I would highly recommend either that's the actual software name. Crazy because it's mmhmm.com. Or Ecamm Live. I prefer Ecamm Live. A little bit more. You've got to pay for it, but it can do a few more fancy things. Like I won't show you now. I can move myself around the screen and do a few more fancy things. But Ecamm Live or does what I've done with allowing you to control the slides behind you. Okay, so there's a technical question. Let's have a look at what else we've got here. Okay, so Lynn, you've asked me. Oh, and Lynn, yeah, you're saying there, I agree with you. Crisp.ai is a really great technology. So Crisp, KRISP.ai. It's a great piece of software. It just doesn't quite play nicely with Ecamm. So I'm still working on that. I'm trying to there's another loopback software that will allow me to integrate the sound and video a little bit better. But this is, and in fact, Lynn, your question brings me to the point, right? The point that I've tried to make all the way through this webinar is that we all need to be in learning mode. We all need to be in experimentation mode. We all need to be developing, because this disruption that we are living in now is not going away. That's COVID. But all the other disruptors are not going away either. And in fact, I think COVID has accelerated, especially some of the technology disruptors that are coming our way are being accelerated by COVID, not going away. And so we all have to learn to deal with disruption. It's going to be a main theme of our lives, that the future is not just an extension of the past, that we've got to learn how to adapt in a way that doesn't stress us out, freak us out all the time. And I really, really hope that the Dealing with Disruption course that we've put together does that for you. So just a reminder then, the Dealing with Disruption course looks at these 7 aspects of dealing with disruption. It's a 40 short video course with an exercise book that goes along with it that helps you to do practical application of this. It's not a theoretical course, it's very practical. If you sign up now, there's the workbook that goes along with the course. If you sign up now as a result of watching this webinar, if you sign up within the next 48 hours using this link down here, you will get the course at the very best price we're able to do it at, $75. And that $75 will also get you a copy of my Leading in a Changing World book in digital format. We'll send it to you straight away. And you will get 3 months access to the Future of Work Academy with full unlimited access to all of the other courses, the book summaries and the community of our Future of Work Academy. And then you will be able to connect with me live and in person, and that will be an exclusive session just for people who signed up on the basis of this webinar. So it's not a general offer, and that's not another presentation from me. That's us interacting and you being able to ask your questions and engage and extract every bit of value that you can in terms of learning how to deal with disruption. Thank you very much, everybody, for your time. Thank you so much for attending this webinar. Please be in touch with us and our team at Tomorrow Today Global if we can help you with anything else in these crazy disrupted times. And I hope that those of you who sign up for the course really not only enjoy it and enjoy the interesting style that we've used, but get huge value and discover that you are set up to deal with whatever disruptions come your way. All the best, and thank you very much for your time.